It was November 6, 2012, Election Day, and for the first time ever, I wasn't waiting with all the children in the babysitting room while my parents went to vote. This time, I was waiting in the long line of adults waiting to cast their votes. I had just turned 18 and was privileged enough to be able to partake in my first presidential election. There was something so powerful about having the ability to contribute to society in this way. Voting gave me a voice in positive change. What made this day especially important to me was who stood by my side in line, my grandmother. And no, she didn't stand next to me in the booth, too. I'm pretty sure she'd get kicked out for that. But as I stood next to her in line, I noticed a smile never left her face. She was a very proud grandmother on that day. I was a young woman voting for the first time, and this made my grandmother and myself think back to all that has happened throughout history to allow this moment to take place. My grandmother has been passionate about women's rights ever since she was young, and she even volunteered and worked at the Susan B. Anthony House in Rochester, New York for several years. For those of you who don't know who Susan B. Anthony is, don't tell my grandmother. She wouldn't be very happy with you. Susan B. Anthony, or Miss Anthony, as my grandmother would call her, dedicated her life to women's suffrage. Ignoring opposition and abuse, Anthony traveled and lectured across the nation for the vote. She also campaigned for abolition of slavery, the right for women to own their own property and retain their earnings, and she advocated for women's labor organizations. The demand for suffrage of American women was first seriously formulated at the Seneca Falls Convention in 1848. After the Civil War, agitation by women for the ballot became increasingly vocal. Susan B. Anthony, her close friend Elizabeth Cady Stanton, and other suffragists refused to sanction the 15th Amendment because it did not give women the ballot. Stanton and Anthony founded the American Equal Rights Association and in 1868 became editors of its newspaper, The Revolution. The title of the newspaper proudly displayed their motto, "Men their rights and nothing more, women their rights and nothing less." Anthony spoke at meetings and collected signatures for petitions. Her efforts, along with the efforts of several other activists such as Alice Paul, Lucy Stone, Ida B. Wells, and many others, changed the course of history for women forever. On August 26, 1920, the 19th Amendment to the Constitution was finally ratified, enfranchising all American women and declaring for the first time that they, like men, deserve all the rights and responsibilities of citizenship. On Election Day in 1920, millions of American women exercised their right to vote for the first time. It took 100 years for women to win that fight, and thanks to them, I was allowed to vote for the first time too in 2012. Women continue to make advances in the political field to this day. In 2008, Senator Hillary Clinton made a historic bid for the Democratic presidential nomination. Although she was defeated in the primaries by Senator Barack Obama, she won some 18 million votes in those polls. If it weren't for women like Miss Anthony, who knows what the political world would look like for women today. The passion that drove these women to attain equality is what captured my grandmother's attention. She told me that when she was young, she took for granted having the right to vote. But she became so interested in women's rights because she realized all the things that women used to not be able to have or experience. College, marriage, jobs. My grandmother began volunteering at the Susan B. Anthony House in 1995 and officially started working there in 2005. She loved everything about her job, giving tours, working the gift shop. However, when I asked her what her favorite part was about working there, she responded, "My interactions with the visitors." She went on to talk about how she loved teaching and enlightening everyone that walked through Miss Anthony's doors. She wants people to be more educated on the importance of voting, and more importantly, she wants people to appreciate and be knowledgeable about the individuals that risked it all so that we can experience the right to vote today. Because she is so involved, her passion has spilled over into my life. I visited the Susan B. Anthony House several times and have gone on numerous tours. I have books, clothes, dolls, an endless amount of Susan B. Anthony merchandise, because my grandma would give them as gifts to me and my sister as we were growing up. Every August, the Susan B. Anthony House hosts a festival parade for women's rights. My sister and I walked in the parade with my grandmother almost every summer. Now that I am older, I have learned to truly appreciate the rights that I have, and I want to learn more about the people who made it all possible. My grandmother told me, "You learn more about it when you are part of it." This speaks to me in so many ways. People don't grow an appreciation for the things around them until they experience it firsthand. I am so thankful for the experiences and lessons that my grandmother has taught me. Unfortunately, she had to leave the Susan B. Anthony House when my grandfather died, and she moved to PA to live with my family. But I know she has made a lasting impact on those that she has met and inspired at the Susan B. Anthony House.